Hi, I'm Bukeka. I'm the B.
And I'm Enolia, and I'm the E.
Together, we are Be Empowered.
The universe is calling, calling, calling. The universe is calling me to be. It's calling me to listen more, talk less, and hold the light. The universe is calling me to be.
We believe that deep in our souls, we hold conversations, but for whatever reasons, we do not always take the opportunity to speak from our hearts.
We want you to imagine that you're sitting right here with us now, sipping a cup of tea or coffee at our dining room table, and we're having that conversation. You know, the one that encourages, inspires, and motivates you to the infinite possibilities that your life has to offer.
Let us help you to expand your imagination, to create your beautiful dream into reality. It starts right here and right now, because the universe is calling you to be.
The universe is calling me to be. The universe is calling, calling. The universe is calling me to be. It's calling me, calling me.
Well, hello, everybody. This is Be Empowered. So happy to have you all with us today. Of course, I'm the B, and with Bukeka, and we've got Enolia. How are you, Enolia?
I'm doing well, and so happy to be here and excited for our topic that we're going to talk about today. So go ahead, Bukeka, let's share with the audience.
All right. Well, on top of having a very special topic, we have a very special friend. This is our first guest on BE Empowered.
Yes.
When we're introducing to our audience today, Mr. Chaz Wesley. Chaz, how are you this morning?
I am doing well. Thanks for having me.
Oh, we're so excited to have you here, Chaz.
Thank you.
Yes. So we've been having a wonderful conversation, kind of a pre-call kind of conversation, and we've really looked at this topic of trying to be in control. So today we're talking about just relax. Nothing is in your control. So we're very excited to share this with you, with the audience today. Enolia, when we were talking about this, what were your thoughts?
Oh my gosh, everything came rushing in. I mean, when I think about this topic and I think about my interactions with people, places, things, we plan our day. We think that everything's going to go according to plan. Why? Because we think we're in control of our day. And that is so far from the truth. When I look at what actually takes place when my day or my plan is interrupted, everything just gets turned upside down. And I look up and my day goes by and nothing I wanted to accomplish gets accomplished. And I go back and I say, what happened? The thing about it is that the flow of the day was not within my control. It just wasn't there. I mean, you think that you control everything and you have all of your chores and your tasks and everything that you need to get done accomplished. And you look up and really you're living the day the way the divine sees you live it. It's just not going to happen any other way. You can either go with the flow or you can meet it with resistance. And goodness knows we have a lot of resistance with us. And I'll leave it at that.
So true. My Friday, my last Friday was exactly that. I work in the financial field, and that day, everyone decided that there was a problem. Everyone decided that there was a problem. So despite the fact that I had a wonderful meditation that morning and I had made the decision that everything was going to go smooth, not everyone was in on that conversation, Enolia and Chaz. You know, speaking of resistance, there was the point where I was frustrated because of the people that were calling. It was the same type of issue over and over and over again. And I was resistant to the fact that I couldn't control how they were coming to me, how it was showing up. Instead, I could have made a better choice and just said, well, this is how it is today. And come from that space of being relaxed, being at peace, and just knowing that this was the kind of day that it was going to be for them. But since I was slightly resistant, I'm like, what's going on? Why are all these calls happening? What's wrong with these people? Chaz, what do you think? What do you think?
I'm just looking up a quote that I am remembering by Einstein that says, reality is merely an illusion, albeit a very persistent one. I love that, because we try to create and control our reality all the time. But, you know, reality, like both of you said, is just kind of coming at us all the time. But what we have to remember is we are our greatest point of attraction. So the only part of any control that we have is to stop and notice what is coming and know that we are in charge of that only by the fact that we are attracting it. So if you want all of that stuff to stop coming, stop, go into a time of meditation, listen to some music, just turn your attention to something else and change your point of attraction so different things come, things you want instead.
That you have such a great point there. And I also want to pick up on the fact that not only are we attracting it, but the only thing that we actually do control is how we choose to react to it. Yeah. And I know that we were talking about this earlier, and I want to go back to that. I want to talk about what is within the realm of our control. I like to define fear like this. We operate in a bubble. That bubble is where that boundary is, where we are comfortable getting things accomplished. And, you know, your heart's desire always wants to exceed that bubble, right? Because you desire it, it's not in the comfort zone, you got to work for it. You have a challenge, you have to rise to the occasion for it. And we meet this thing called resistance that says, oh, I don't know if I can do all of that. You know, when we choose to go beyond that boundary of comfort zone and address that heart's desire, what is the attitude that you're doing it with? Are you going out there with an attitude that I can rise to the occasion, I can transcend any challenge that meets me because I am capable and I have this positive attitude of doing it? Or do I meet it with an attitude like, I can't get this done, and then you don't get it done? You know, that's predetermined. That's a self-fulfilling, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Self-fulfilling
prophecy.
Prophecy, thank you. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I'm going to throw it right back at both of you. Either of you, what are your feelings about that?
Well, you know, I'll go back to that day, that Friday. It took me a while to get to that point. There were those moments when I had that statement of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Well, I say out loud, what's wrong with these people? So I'm attracting more of what's wrong. I'm attracting more people with telling me the problems that they're having that I can't fix. That's the other part of the control. The other part of not having the control. I can't fix these problems. I can talk to you. I can help you navigate that emotionally. I can tell you a few things that we're going to do, but I can't fix it. What I ultimately ended up doing is exactly what you said. I had to sit back. I had to take a deep breath. I had to relax and remember that I can't do those things. And it's not even my responsibility. My responsibility is to be in the moment. My responsibility is to allow what I am able to do to simply let it be. When I was at that point, that's when I had the power to affect change. I had the power to affect change in that person's emotion, attitude, their response. But when I was in that mode of what's wrong with these people, you could hear that in my own voice. They could feel that, they could pick up on that. So then there was that greater exchange. So there really is a big difference when you shift your consciousness, when you shift your perception, and when you shift your knowing that you're not in control, to simply being and allowing and trusting that things will work out. And when I was able to do that, that was so much better for both of us, for all of us. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you
Chaz?
think, Chaz?
You know, when we have things going right in our world, let's say you've got 5 things that are really important to you in life. Doesn't matter what they are, who they are. When you have those 5 things that are going really right, and then one of them begins to shift and it's going quote unquote wrong. As humans, we tend to tune to the one thing that is not going well, when all of these other things are going really, really well in our life. But when we tune to that one thing and we look at it and we analyze it and we try to figure it out and we try to place the blame on whose fault it is, or we try to manipulate it or fix it, like you said, that's when I tell my clients, you are such a control freak. You are such a control freak, being so hyper-focused on this one thing that's not going well. Now, conversely, if you had those same 5 things that were very important to you, and only one of those things was going well, and the other 4 were not, the same universal law applies. Whatever you give your attention to is what grows. So that is what you were talking about when you said the only thing that we are in control of is how we respond or we react. And so noticing is the first thing in a Buddhist philosophy of understanding. Notice what is happening in that moment as far as where your attention is flowing. Because wherever your attention is flowing is where you are going.
You're singing my song. I love this because I live my life based on noticing. And it is so important. And I want to emphasize this to our audience. Notice how you are participating in the role of life. Notice your reactions. Notice how it's coming at you. Notice and step out of the emotions of it.
Yeah.
And just be conscious, be present. So Chaz, because you talked about noticing, and I could go on and on and on.
Me too.
Just like you're singing my song, but I'm going to throw it back at you. They might as well hear from a third party instead of from just us. Talk about what happens when you notice the resistance.
Well, I too love noticing. It's a huge part of my practice, personally and professionally. And when I talk about noticing, I'm talking about getting into a state of non-resistance, which is a little bit daunting at times because we have practiced resistance. But really, it's getting into a state of non-attachment, because you can only notice to that degree of noticing when you are not attached to an outcome, when you are not attached to a feeling, when you are not attached even to the moment that you're in. So noticing is a very broad understanding of observing things as they are and being okay with it, because there's the control freak syndrome. If you're not okay with it and it's happening, you're the one in struggle. You're the one that's banging your head against the wall, because reality, again, is very persistent. And yet it is still an illusion. Yeah. Noticing is a big thing. And it's actually this point at which we can take, quote unquote, control again of how we're responding, what we're responding with. But noticing first softens it to a gentle place that we can start again from that gentle place.
And noticing how we make decisions.
Oh, yeah.
And noticing when we're at the crossroads.
Yeah. Why we are making this decision. If we're stuck in the how of that decision, none of our business ever, right?
Exactly.
But what is the decision and why do we want that to come to be? That's a huge thing.
Yes.
That's what gets us out of the control. Sometimes we want to just be in control and there's our why. Well, you're going to be very alone in that after a while.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, we were talking about how this affects the relationships that we're in. So I'm going to give you a personal story. I come from a very spiritual, grounded, I love my morning meditations and so forth and so on. When I married my husband, who did not come from that world at all. I mean, he's a very spiritual person, and I've mentioned to him, to our audience before, about how, he's a football fan. He's, just he's a Chicago Bears type of guy, right? And so what I began to notice when we were first dating and when we were in relationship, there were all these things I wanted to change. Oh, he needs to not say those words that like that, or he needs to put this in his diet or take this out of his diet. I started noticing all the things I wanted to change. And I thought to myself, if I need to change all of these things about him, why am I marrying him? Mm-hmm. Why am I trying to control really all the things, those little endearing things that I really love about him, because it's not in the same fashion of which I operate in. 8 years, later, we've been in our relationship. I've continued to do the practice. I've noticed how I'm responding in the relationship. I've noticed how I feel if he is, how he's responding when he's watching the games or whatever, But what I've also noticed is how he has now made some shifts in in his countenance, in his habits, in his health. And now we're really moving forward together in a lot of those things, because we didn't take each other apart. He didn't try to change me. I didn't try to change him. We weren't trying to control each other's behavior. To our audience, I would say that if you find yourself in relationship where you are trying to control and manipulate or have that person be the way that you think that they should be, you're losing. You're not gaining. And there's all kinds of resistance that's adding to the relationship that doesn't need to be there. Just simply notice how you're being, where your spirit is, where your heart is, where your love is. Allow that to be how you navigate in the relationship. And you may see unexpected experiences in your relationship that you've always wanted, or you may make some adjustments and changes in how you're being and have a more fulfilling experience. So that's just my personal story about noticing where I am, how the ability to stay connected to my presence and knowing that I am not in control actually does begin to shift the outer experience.
And it's interesting because we are all taught control. It's part of the belief system. So I want to talk a little bit, and I'm going to shift our gears a little bit and talk about the opposite of control, which is surrender. And that I noticed that when I surrendered to the need for control. I surrendered the need for attaching to things. I surrendered the need to be judgmental about every single thing that crossed my path. And I had to give it a judgment and assign it a place of where I thought it should be or is, or how it is in relationship to me. When I actually was vulnerable, instead of putting on the facade of control, that's when I actually had true freedom. We talk about controlling our lives, controlling how we're perceived, controlling how we judge, controlling who judges us, controlling what words were said. When you truly surrender, that is the ultimate control of self. Because at this point, no matter what's projected onto you, no matter how you're judged, no matter what's said to you, no matter what's attached, you know you. And if you know you, then all of those things are really, they don't mean anything. So therefore, they can't put you in a place of pain. They can't put you in a place of resentment. They can't put you in a place of an emotional state that doesn't serve you. Because you're at peace with you. You've surrendered it all. So knowing that you come from that Buddhist philosophy, I'm just going to throw this in your court, Chaz, because I really want to hear your thoughts on it. Having not subscribed, but feeling like it's so much in alignment.
There is a golden rule with us empaths, and I'm probably making up these words, but it goes something like this: observe, don't absorb. And that's
I
the
like
thing,
that.
that's the law of noticing, right? Observe, but don't absorb. And everything we are doing and everything that we are saying and everything that we are experiencing is part of our story in the now. And if we want that story to change, all we have to do is tell a different story. And we can't do that from the place of absorption. When you have absorbed all of the negativity or absorbed other people's projections or absorbed things that are untrue, we have to get into that place of observing what is and being friends with it, and then starting from that place and telling a new story, right? Yeah, it's a beautiful thing
Right.
to understand. That's what we have control about, is our story.
Are you hearing this, audience? Let go of the story.
Let go
Stop
of the
being
story.
stuck in the story. We create stories between us. When we don't get our way, when we're not in control, we create the story in between us, and it doesn't exist. Because there are moments when you want your way, you're not getting your way, you create the story, and then the story becomes real because that's what you attach emotion to. But if you let go of the story and just realize, okay, the person doesn't want to do what I want them to do, it's okay to hear no and let go of the story and not create a story in we're not friends now, or we're not working together, we're not this, we're not that. No, let go of the story and just realize that you asked, you were given a response. The response may not be what you wanted to hear. It may not be what you like, but you were given a response. Honor that and let it go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think the true observation of that is that in reality, there really is no, ever. And so if the response that you're hearing is a no, you got to change that story of, this is not a dead end. This is not a barrier that you come up against. That no is a yes, there are other options. Yes, it's time to pivot to look at what you want instead of what's not working. And so to understand that there's never a no that comes at you, there's just not. It's a not yet a lot of times. It's a not yet, but it's always a not this, but something better. Right?
You know, my mom used to say this saying, and I'll repeat it for the studio audience. There's no such thing as no. There's a such thing as not that way.
That's right. Lovely.
Now I know where she got it from. I've lived my life by that. There's no such thing as no, but there is a such thing as not that way. Sometimes we can't go in a straight line and just right through things. Sometimes we have to go around it, over it, under it, side by side. Yeah. But there's no such thing as no.
Right.
And that's what we lose in adulthood. As children, we get told no a lot. As a matter of fact, there have been amazing studies on how many times a child hears the word no. And what that does is begins to suppress what we understand in therapeutic world as where we operate. So let's say a 5-year-old comes onto the planet 5 years ago, and all of a sudden at 5 years old, they're operating at what is called the genius level. But after so many times of hearing no, thousands of times in our childhood, no, don't touch that, no, don't cross the street that way. And sometimes we hear it so often, it's like, no, right? So you've just heard the word no 6 or 7 times in a second. We begin to suppress our understanding of what we are saying yes to. What is our truth? And to shift that story is just what you said. It's just, no, it's not this way. No, not yet. No, not now. And there's the new story. and fill in the blank
And.
what you want. There's not a but. There's nothing being
Mhm.
negated here. It's not this, and it is something else. Where are you going to put your attention?
That is so amazing. The fact that we live so much of our lives, if we're beyond 5 years old, from that perspective, then everything just gets compounded, right? You're at that genius level, you're told no thousands of times, and then you have decades, if you're not in that understanding of surrender and noticing, you have decades and decades of that compounding. So now we're at this place, those who are listening are at this place of, how do I turn that around? So I want to go back to noticing. Not only are we telling the story out loud, but then there's all those stories that we just have floating in our head. Floating in our head, imaginings, visualizations of things that we are predicting that aren't even happening in the moment. So another example, I was thinking about my mother. My mother always drove Jags. That was her car. I had just purchased a car after driving one of the Jags she had left me. I was thinking about a conversation with a cousin. And I started to imagine my cousin thinking this or saying these things of, I'm not driving the Jag anymore, or so forth and so on. In that moment of me noticing this made up conversation, I said, this is not happening, Bukeka. This conversation is not happening. You are in this space because of whatever insecurities or fears or imaginings that are happening, but this in reality is not occurring. And at that moment, a Black 1995 Jaguar Vandenplas drove right up next to me. And then I began to notice that there are messages coming from all around saying, that's right, baby, you're okay. You know who you are. You're letting go. You're surrendering. And in just a few moments, I went from kind of perturbed to overjoyed. In this joyful space. But it was both of those things. It was being in the story in my head, noticing the story in my head, releasing all of that, surrendering that, and then coming to a place of joy in a matter of 45 seconds. It was beautiful.
Yes, yes, I totally agree. What a beautiful story. I want to pick up on something that was said earlier in our conversation right here, which is we glossed over it, but it is so important, which is talking about here and now, about operating from here and now, because what happens is that many of us will operate from the past. I want to qualify what the past is. The past is experience that you have lived at that here and now that has been recorded in your memory that you have not let go. And because you have not let go, it has resonance. Based on whether that resonance is positive or negative is the experience that you have that you've chosen to remember or record. And most of us tend to record the negative experiences predicated on what's happened in the past versus the positive ones. We have some of those positive, good times. I remember this great time at this experience, but the ones that are negative are the traumas. And those are the ones that linger and that bring down the veil so that we are no longer able to see through clear eyes the clarity of our future or our here and now, because we've never been able to lift the negative recording within our memory. So when we get to that place, we think that life is nothing but this pain or this trauma or this negativity. We really are just basically taking that past experience and we're stuck in the story of it. We won't lift the veil up. We won't surrender it. We actually allow that recorded memory or trauma or experience consume us. And that's when we've let the experience control us. I can weave us through this whole story of getting out of it, but I want to default to Chaz, because I know you're going to bring something beautiful to this.
Well, I love what you're saying, because everything that we are living is in response to the story we are telling or have been telling. And what we have been telling is our past. We bring it into our now and continue the narrative. But what we have to understand is that if you want your story to shift in any way, all you have to do is start telling that new story. And the way I explain it to clients over and over is, Bukeka talked about it earlier, our imagination is a powerful thing. It's one of our spiritual powers, actually. And when we see things the way we want it to be, rather than the way it seemingly is, and then we line up with that which we want, the entire universe is also lining up and making all those cooperative components line up. And we are our new point of attraction. So the way I talk about it with clients is, notice it as a plan, because we are planning kind of people, whether you're in business or just about your day at home. You're planning a to-do list, you're planning who's coming, what you're going to say, what's next. I mean, we're already planning lunch and it's 7 o'clock in the morning. So, so to think about it in that way, whatever you're feeling is part of your plan. So here's the trick. If you're worrying, you're planning. If you're stressing out, you're planning. However, the same law applies. If you're appreciating, you're planning. If you're being inspired, you're planning. So get in charge, take control of what you're planning by what you're feeling.
And I love to make that akin to, I use these words, Chaz, which is dream a beautiful dream or you will be dreamt.
Love it. Yeah.
Which is, if you don't hold a vision for yourself that is a beautiful vision, then you will be living your life trying to fulfill the roles and responsibilities of how people see you. And when you do dream that beautiful dream and you hold that vision for yourself, then life becomes a walk and a path to that vision.
Yeah. Yeah. The great poet Rumi really said it best when he said, what you want wants you.
Yes.
What you desire is desiring you. And that's a huge thing, because the story has already been written. You're wanting it, you're desiring it, came to be in the moment that you did that. And it sounds nothing like your once upon a time story, right? And so as we think about understanding that our next story, our future story, our now story looks nothing like our past. And every effort you offer is about not holding yourself apart from that. That's really the story you want to tell. Tell the story as you wish it to be. Dream your dream as you wish it to be, as your inner being knows it to be, and make that your goal, to be in authentic relationship with who you're letting yourself become. That's true surrender. Surrendering not only what was, but surrendering to and unto a universe that says, this is what you asked for, line up with it, and it is yours.
Exactly. And then notice, so that you're realizing that what you asked for is unfolding right before your eyes.
In beautiful and divine time. But we get into the thing of, but it needs to be quicker, or it needs to be next Tuesday, and somebody named Sally needs to bring it, and it needs to come from this place. And then we're in control freak mode again.
And that's all the how.
That's all the how.
That's all the how it has to be delivered, how it has to look like, how it needs to be for me, how the timing has to be. We need to let go of how and just allow.
Oh, I love that. Did you just make that up?
Yes.
That's perfect.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I often say how is never any of your business. And people don't understand that because we make it our business to know how and where and when and who. None of that's our business. The only
It's none of it.
ever your business is what do you want and why do you want it? There's no resistance in any of that. People ask me all the time, what do you mean by how is none of your business? You know, there was a time in my life when I was paralyzed and I could not walk. I could not move my legs. And so when someone says, you know, move over there to that chair, that seemed like an impossible feat. And I would ask, how am I supposed to go over there? But I had made up a story simultaneously in that question that I needed to walk on my feet. The truth is, the universe says, oh, there are so many more options. You could crawl, somebody could carry you, somebody could bring that chair over here, we'll slip you into it and then move the chair. I mean, there's boundless options. And so the thing about how is you never know how something's going to happen from now. You only know how it happened after the fact. So once I'm in the chair, I'll tell you how I got there. But telling you how I'll get there from here is just a story.
It's just a story, and we walk the path called life to get there.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And so how beautiful is that? It's just that life is that story, the story, and we can either create a beautiful one or a miserable one. It's just the attitude by which we choose to engage and how present we are as we notice.
Yeah. There's another universal law that says everything's created twice, first in mind and then in the physical realm.
Yes.
So you got to get to that place of mindfulness and create your story first in mind, and then trust and surrender to and unto that which is becoming in the physical.
Exactly, which is why we always tout on this show, positive attitude,
Yes.
positive, and that your thoughts have energy and they are real, they have a vibration, they have a resonance. Everything you think is real. Yeah. So it's imperative that we stay positive.
It's imperative that we stay positive, and it's imperative that we also feel that within us, because so many times we're in our head, but we're not in our heart. We're not in our heart, and there is the place. The heart is the place where everything comes alive, literally and physically, right? So it's important that we feel that beautiful dream, that we feel that worthiness, that we feel that allowing and trusting. When we feel it, that is an indication that what is forming and shaping in the external is first forming and shaping in the internal. And that's an exciting place to be.
It really is a beautiful place to be. And anyone who has taken the time to just reflect and find peace in that inner journey will see that we are energy and we are nothing but love at the core of our beings. We are, and even those you look at and you go, oh my gosh, they're so evil, they're this, they're that, and the other. At the end of the day, there's love there too. It's just not being expressed because of all the trauma and all of the experiences that have taken shape within them. And then their own personal choice. But at the core of our being, it's just love.
Yeah.
When you think at the core of your being, it reminds me, in my world, I call it my inner being. Mm-hmm. And I am in a relationship with my inner being today that I've never had a relationship quite like this. I mean, she has a name, she has a persona. There is an understanding of who my inner being is, always working on my behalf. So a really great guide for all of this that we're saying is to ask, what does my inner being think about this? What does my inner being feel about this? What does my inner being know about this? Because if I'm feeling something other than what my inner being is feeling, there's no such thing as separation, but it sure feels like I am separate from what my inner being knows. And the thing about knowing, it goes back to noticing. There's the same understanding here. When we know the truth will set us free. Jesus said it, the Buddha said it, Martin Luther King Jr. said it, but we get that confused and we often say the truth sets us free. There's no truth that is going to set you free. It's your knowing a truth that sets you free. What does my inner being already know that I can line up with now? Our control issues are when we are separate from that knowing.
You know, that was so beautifully said. I think, Bukeka, we have to end it right here on that note.
I think that that was the perfect note to end it on. It came right back around and put a
It came
mark.
right back around, and it was so beautifully said. And I have goosebumps. And Chaz, we can't thank you enough for being a guest on the Be Empowered. You're our first guest, and what a wonderful, wonderful experience this has been. And to our studio audience, if you haven't gleaned anything, I hope you gleaned how to let go of control. So on this note, I will say thank you so much, Chaz.
My honor. Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, first of all, audience, this is a dream come true for me right now. I am with two people that I absolutely love and adore. And the meeting that we're going to have after this is going to be a party, right?
You bet! I can't wait to talk more.
Exactly. So thank you, audience, for listening to Be Empowered. And feel free to share this with your friends, and also just taking this information and allow it to help you in your journey, help you on your path of life. So thank you, Enolia. Thank you, Chaz. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and have a fantastic day.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed the show. We look forward to bringing you more shows in the future. To learn more about our co-hosts, check out their websites, www.bukekastyle.com and www.enolia.live. Learn about their masterclasses for conscious transformation, their personal coaching, along with their international retreats and expeditions. Are you an entrepreneur looking for another line of income? Check out www.planetmarketing.com/Enolia and www.planetmarketing.com/bblakemore. We are here to transform your life. Thank you for listening.